shortly after that purchase, literally that night, I discovered the infotainment display completely locked up, and I couldn't use maps, I couldn't use the climate control, I couldn't use anything. Door handle needed to be recalled because when you're driving down the highway, it would open at speed. They said, oh yeah, we are aware of that defect. That is a thing that corporate is aware of, and yeah, there's no fix for it. We're not going to work on it.
The only people more hated than lawyers are used car salesmen. And this call is going to show us exactly why. There's going to be a case of I don't recall the recall. Han Solo, that is a fake name, but you're a real person with a legal issue. What's going on?
Yeah, hi. So in August 19th specifically, I went to a car dealer and I purchased a vehicle. And during that sale, I currently actually still do own a Chevy Bolt, which is not what I'm calling about.
Okay.
But there was a recall involved with that vehicle. It involved bringing the vehicle in for like 3 weeks. It was a whole big thing. If you remember, like Chevy had like a big thing with the Bolt, so they had to switch out all the batteries. It was nuts. And so my wife said the one thing she wanted was that the current car that we're going to get not have a recall on it. And so I brought my wife to test drive the vehicle, and we were outside the car, asked our salesman, hey, we just want to make sure there's no recalls on this vehicle, right? Because we were looking at a different vehicle of the same make, and that one did have a recall. We want to make sure this one does not. And our salesman assured us, no, there's none. And so relying on that assurance, we move forward with the purchase.
Now that's interesting because I bought a few cars and I've never asked the salesman, does this vehicle have a recall? So you
right?
You knew that there had been a recall, but you still wanted that type of model? That wouldn't make you want to switch types of cars?
Well, I'm a person who does a lot of research prior to buying.
Okay.
And this one just seemed to be, there's quite a few EVs, but there aren't as many that are more SUV body type. And so we looked into all the different options, and this one really, really looked to be everything we were looking for. And it was a earlier model year it was a relatively minor recall that was on the other one. The other one was like the door handle needed to be recalled because I say this is minor. As I'm saying this, I'm like, oh god, that is kind of major. When you're driving down the highway, it would open at speed.
What? No, that's a you don't just want the doors.
Just move that over to major column. Yeah.
That's called an eject button, and it's a Batman villain's evil
Have you
plan.
seen Goldfinger? I mean,
yeah.
Right? No. Well, it was fixable, is the point. And so as long as they put a new door handle on it, was fine. The salesperson told us, and I quote specifically, word for word, it was like, no, we can't sell any vehicles that a recall. We got to fix all that stuff before sending it out. So you can be assured anything that was wrong with the vehicle has to be fixed before we send it to you. I'm like, okay. Shortly after that purchase, literally that night, I discovered by adding a user to the vehicle, which was myself, the infotainment display completely locked up. I drove out to meet a friend, and I couldn't use maps, I couldn't use the climate control, I couldn't use anything because the infotainment is like central to vehicles now. Like that's like their heart and soul. And so I was like, well, shoot. And so I checked out like, hey, I Googled like what the symptom of what that particular model had, and wouldn't you know it, recall number, blah, 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 pops up, infotainment display, failure to respond. It can make the backup camera not work, which is legally mandated now in all cars. It's got a lot of consequences to that one thing. So,
and you bought this used, right? This was used?
Yeah. Okay. It was used, but it only had like 10,000 miles on it, so not a whole lot of miles.
Well, of course, because it didn't work. It's hard to put miles on it.
When you keep losing a passenger on the way, it's hard to really build up that odometer.
Well,
I can't drive in the HUV lane because my passengers keep falling out. This is bullshit.
Right? Oh, see, I almost said shit. I was like, is this a cursing show?
You can curse. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, cool. Awesome. 8/22, 3 days after the sale. Actually, on the third day, I called Orlando Vita, whatever the dealer was. I spoke first to service and said, hey, this is going on. Do you guys have a fix for this? And they said, oh yeah, we are aware of that defect. That is a thing that corporate is aware of. And yeah, there's no fix for it. We're not going to work on it.
So your question is, what do I do now?
Right. It all went through a whole bunch of stuff. I sent a certified letter to the manager. I got both this vehicle's corporate involved. They started out saying that no, that's totally not allowed. We can't sell any like that. But then when I'm thinking council of my local contacted council of corporate, they got a lot more careful with their words. They said, actually, it's only illegal to sell new vehicles with a recall. It's not illegal. We just say they should not do it. Last update would be I talked to the manager and he said he kind of dismissed a whole bunch of stuff. There was an official corporate memo. You should not sell these vehicles. And in fact, they should be taken to the back lot, it said on the memo. Don't put them on the front lot. And I asked him if he'd received that. And he said, well, you signed a Carfax, right? And I'm like, okay. I had, in fact, signed the Carfax on the iPad.
And there was a tiny little line item that said you acknowledged there was a recall.
Oh, it didn't even say I acknowledged it. No. It was just on there that there is a recall. It wasn't like I had to find a checkbox that I acknowledged as a recall. That I know I would have been totally screwed. But no, there was no checkbox. It was literally just the recall was on there. He straight up said, like, we can argue back and forth with whatever, and I'm sure our attorneys are going to talk about like he said, she said, and to me that's almost like predetermination of dishonesty. Because
what was the off? What was the offer? Did they ever make an offer to you to fix this?
No
offer to fix. How large is this company? You said corporate a couple times.
Very, very large.
Which one is it?
What? Volkswagen.
Okay, but it was a used Volkswagen dealership?
It was the dealership sold used cars, but they also sell new cars.
Yes, but the dealership is the one that may or may not have lied to you during the sales process, and that would be the deceptive practice. So how big is that dealership? Is it one dealership? Are there multiple dealerships?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I believe, so the individual who's what's it called? The primary on it, the owner owns several dealerships, but this is only Volkswagen.
Yeah, it's still tens of millions of dollars of inventory, probably. Okay.
Right. Oh,
okay.
Yes, definitely.
So you have given them an opportunity to. How much was the car?
$28,300.
Okay. And is there even a quote that's out there for what it would take to fix this or bring it back to drivable and safe?
There is no fix currently, because the problem is it is a software fix, and so Volkswagen engineers are currently on it, in quotes, but it's been in place since May, and they still don't even have a beta build yet.
So you have an undrivable car right now.
Right. Well, the thing is, and what they said he kind of was turning his hand on what their legal strategy is going to be in court, because he said, we're going to argue it only affects 1% of vehicles. And I'm like, yes, and I am the lucky 1%. Is drivable until it suddenly is not. So like it's fine, and then you turn it on one day and it's just.
That's not fine. That's the opposite. You can't say the car works until it does it. Like that. Like.
Right.
Hey, listen, we have these parachutes and they almost always work, except sometimes they just don't deploy when you're in midair. But other than that, they're good.
Yeah, give it a go. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
We got an airbag.
Right.
9 out of 10 airbags air. 1 out of 10 knives.
Yeah. Face full of concrete. Yeah.
Yeah. Nina, how do you feel about this consumer experience so far?
I have no idea.
You don't have a thought?
I have no thoughts.
Have you ever bought a car?
Literally never.
Never bought a car?
Never.
Have you ever owned a car?
Oh.
That was given to me.
Okay, so you never had to make the decision.
No.
Okay, well, great. That's great commentary.
Thank you.
And I do think that there are millions of women like you who've already tuned off this episode because it doesn't apply to them. They're like, someone else is going to buy the car. I don't. But to the men, to the boys that are on.
To everyone who's been ripped off buying a used car, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the non-binaries and the people, the lesbians that have more of a masculine presence in their relationship, we welcome you to the show.
Butch would be.
Right.
My producer's saying butch would be the most appropriate term, so I won't use that.
Right, and this
owners?
applies to Volkswagen, but it also applies to Subaru, so that's fine.
Yeah. Hey, the love is how you know a Subaru is a Subaru. Okay.
Exactly.
So you are going to sue this dealership. Let's just jump to the logical next step. It's time to sue them.
Correct.
Are we talking about a small claims? What is the you're in Florida, right?
Yeah. So this particular dealer also had me sign a binding arbitration agreement. Now, luckily, I actually read the binding arbitration agreement, and down at the bottom it says this agreement excludes small claims court, which both parties retain full rights to. And
but is the arbitration bad for him?
It's not bad as long as it's, say, under AAA consumer protocol. So arbitration organizations like American Association of Arbitrators have their own like model terms, and the consumer ones are normally fine, which this would be a consumer type case.
Does it name who the arbitration would be by, or how that process?
It's American. It's American Arbitrators.
It is AAA. Okay, so that's good because usually obviously the problem with arbitration versus court is both sides end up with fees to be paying. You're paying an arbitrator. You're basically paying a private judge. That's what the arbitrator is.
Right.
And the difficulty is obviously, whereas we all pay our taxes and they pay for the judges in the courts, you guys have to stump up to appoint somebody to be the arbitrator. Normally, if it's in a commercial scenario, the plaintiff, the person filing the lawsuit, is going to pay more than the defendant. Because this is consumer, and I haven't looked at the consumer ones for a while, but hopefully the company, the dealership, maybe Volkswagen, whoever you sue, is going to have to pay something, and that's going to lighten some of the load on you.
So
but you are still going to have to go through that.
Do you think he should start arbitration or go small claims? What do you think would be the...
I mean, personally, I think you should try to find a lawyer who specializes in these kind of disputes, because and I don't know the Florida statute, the Texas statute has a triple damages and attorney's fees provision. So that makes these kind of cases, even though the amount is relatively small, attractive to some lawyers, because they can obviously, if they win for you, they can get what you're going to have to pay them. They can say, for example, well, you don't have to pay me up front, but if we win and my fees were $20,000, we can recover those from the dealership, or we can get treble damages. So instead of $10,000, you get $30,000, for example. That's the kind of thing that makes it more attractive. If I'm you and you feel confident explaining this story to 6 people, which is probably what it would be in a small claims court, then by all means follow that route. It's going to be much quicker as well, and it's going to cost a couple of $100 in fees.
We can talk through the small claims analysis. I'm just kind of spitballing out. So I've done a lot of diminished value work, and usually that's when like there's a car that is involved in an accident, and then now that the car has an accident history, it's worth less, and that's the vast majority of them. But I just Googled this, and apparently you can also do them when recalls and defects become present, and there's a change in value. So it might be, just to give you an idea, I know you're doing a lot of your own research, there might be the possibility of bringing a diminished value claim against the person who did not disclose that there was a defect. Like because that might be the theory that you sue under, and those are actually usually really straightforward kind of boilerplate lawsuits, and it's like if you can prove ABC, then you just get the money. So that's just an idea. So let's say you go small claims. What are the limits on small claims where you are? Have you looked that up?
So $8,000, and small claims is actually about $150 cheaper than going through American arbitrators, because it only costs $300 for small claims, and so it ends up being almost identical cost to do small claims versus arbitrators.
So I guess my question is, does $8K feel like your amount of damages?
Yeah, I think that's fair, because really what I'm trying to do now is not so much, at this point, as I said in my demand letter, my trust in the brand is shaken, and I really just want to recover enough fees that I paid during the sale to get out from under it and trade it out for a different vehicle.
Okay.
So that's because my initial was going to be to try to sue for full rescission of sale, but that's not enforceable in small claims because the judgment amount would be higher than $8,000 after the rescission. My question is, I have a couple of questions about the process.
Shoot.
So in Florida, we have the option to do a jury trial instead of a bench trial for small claims. My gut says that a jury is likely to be more sympathetic to the cause.
Yeah.
And it's also going to put more pressure on them because they're not going to want their good name sullied in front of a jury.
Yep.
And so I was going to file with asking for a jury trial.
Yeah.
And then, so the different categories in Florida for small claims are kind of weird. My question was, so the sales category is from a seller's point of view, seller suing a buyer for non-payment.
Yeah.
And so based on some people I've talked to with legal knowledge who, I talked to one of my friends who's an attorney, but he's not providing legal counsel. He said that over and over. He's like,
none of us are. None of us are.
Exactly.
Maybe neither.
Exactly.
But he said the likely domain would be breach of contract.
Yeah.
Because signing contracts and I don't know exactly why else, but That seemed to be the closest domain for court. Does that sound right to you guys, or?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that there's a deceptive and unfair trade practices theory here, and there's laws and provisions that cover that specifically. So if you're trying to look for like a theory, it would be deception, fraud, breach of contract. I think any of those work. For small claims, it's a lot more relaxed. Like, you don't usually have to go in and you have to cite. You can even just use plain English and be like, he said he'd do this, he didn't do that, and then you just kind of leave it for the judge, or in this case, the judge to give instructions to the jury, and then the jury figures out. We'll just sanity check the two lawyers that are not your lawyer that are on the call. I would want a jury trial if I were him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we concur, we agree, Mr. Han Solo, that you should form a rebel alliance, and you should use the whole jury. After that, what should you do to prove this? So it is a stroke against you that the Carfax that you signed includes the recall, but I think your testimony has value. I also think that if you could show any research that you had done prior to the sale, so like let's say you had an email or a text to your wife or like a Google search that you could screenshot that showed you being aware of the recall before the purchase, I think that is really going to aid your testimony, because what kind of person asks, was there a recall? Only someone who knows about it. So I think proving your knowledge that there was a recall, that's going to lend a lot of credibility to, I asked this guy point blank, was there a recall? And he said no. And then also I think you want to look through the communications that you've had in writing and try to lay out a chronology of, look, they basically admitted fault here. They said they did A. They admitted to B. But yeah, for small claims, I feel like you got a pretty good case here.
Yeah. I've got a couple of follow-up questions. I mean, this is a relatively new vehicle, right?
Yes.
Is this not still under warranty? I mean, is this not something that... I know you've obviously gone back to Volkswagen about this, but there should, to my mind...
It's going to be fixed soon, in quote, but from reading Reddit threads about the vehicle... Volkswagen is not the fastest pushing out software updates. They're fixing problems now. An update just came out for a problem that they discovered like a year and a half ago. Just living with a car that works 80% of the time is like a little Russian roulette every time you get in the driver's seat.
And there's another thing too. I think you need to pursue the small claims because you don't want to wait until after this is fixed. And then it's harder to prove your damages. I think his damages are more like he's currently being injured. The injury is not, rectified. So yeah, I think everything that your research is right here. As always, try to get a lawyer, but the lawyer might not make sense from a cost-effective standpoint, especially if you're arguing over $7 or $8 grand. But it sounds like you got a good case. You're well researched. You have the moral right position. I think that it's believable.
Yep. Most people on the jury, you just got, again, make it super simple. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about me getting scammed, obviously, by a car dealership. Who hasn't had that happen to them? Who hasn't been sold a turkey? And just keep it really high level on that. Normal rules of evidence aren't going to apply, hearsay evidence and all the rest of it. You're not going to need to worry about all of that. Just tell your story.
I would also say, if we're just trying to go even like a step further, I would go ahead and file this. And then let's say you get a court date and the court date's like, let's say 30 days out. At 15 days out, I would send an email and be like, hey guys, I just wanted to check in here. I have a great case. I'm very confident in it, but I know there's going to be a lot of time and energy and costs on both sides. Are you amenable to settling this for 6?
Yep.
And then they get to save all the lawyers' time, energy, money, because it's going to cost them probably $1,500 or $2 grand just to defend it.
Easily. I mean, I'd never advise somebody to file a suit just because of the leverage, but it'd probably cost them 5 to 10 to defend.
Well, and
so it's a zero-sum game.
They're going to have a guy that does like 4 of these a day. They got an in-house guy on
there. Big likes big. They won't be able to help them.
They're not your hourly rate. It would cost Matt. It would cost you $10,000 a day to have Matt do this, but they're gonna have a shittier lawyer. But there really is math on settling. So you feel like you got to talk through. You have any other questions?
Well, yeah. So my thought was, I am allowed to subpoena in this. And so my plan was to subpoena the salesman, the general manager who I spoke with, and the finance manager, which also is going to add some significant inconvenience for the dealership in addition to whatever they're paying the lawyer.
Yep. I think this is the most prepared caller we've ever had. You basically called us to brag, Han Solo.
Just showing off on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I think it's like, it's one of those situations where I thought I have a good case, but like I don't, it's the not knowing where to come from at it, and especially that call that I got last Monday where he said, I spoke to my counsel, and he says we did nothing wrong, and so we're not going to do anything. That's literally his exact words.
Oh, well, you spoke to your counsel, and they said, fuck them up a creek. So, yeah. Also, Han Solo, you should have told him never tell me the odds. That's what you should have said.
That's exactly. Ah, man, I gotta bring that into the jury. Get Star Wars references.
All right.
That's well, right?
Han, we think that you've got a great case here, and that you should, go ahead and pursue it. If the numbers make sense, get a lawyer. If they don't, I would feel pretty confident if I were you that I could get some money out of this in small claims. Do you feel like you were heard today?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for calling in to Harley Legal. We're going to get to our next caller.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Han.
If you have a crazy legal story and you want to talk to some lawyers anonymously for free, call us.
Wait, we're not getting paid?
Nothing at all. I don't know how we're going to pay for it, to be honest.